Good evening. Thank you for attending the March 16th, 2026 meeting of the Westerville City Schools Board of Education. This evening's agenda will be displayed on the screen in the front of the room. Printed agendas are on the table for our guests in the back, or you may find the agenda on your mobile device by connecting to the district's website at www.wcsoh.org. Wow. Click on Our District link, select Board of Education, and then follow Board Docs link to our current meeting agenda. There will be one opportunity to address the board this evening. There's a sign-up sheet in the back of the room located on the table. Each speaker will have 3 minutes to address the board. A timer will be shown on the screen. And with that, Ms. Marshall, will you please call the roll?
Mrs. Altman? Here. Mrs. Brown?
Here.
Mrs. Liebing?
Here.
Mrs. Meyer?
Here.
Mrs. Valentine?
Here.
Will you please join us in the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right. Moving along to 3 district highlights and recognitions. We don't have any tonight. So we're going to move on to 4 reports, 4.01. And we're going to talk about middle school football and cheerleading. And I'm going to invite Miss Yanni to the podium and her team.
Thank you. Thank you so much for having us. I'm Becca Yanni. I'm the coordinator of related arts and extracurricular programs for the district. And I also have with me to help present is TD, athletic director at Genoa, Kim Mailington, athletic director at Blendon, and Scott Gaddis, the principal at Genoa. And again, we're here to talk a little bit about our middle school football and football cheer program. This is something that we've been working on all year, and we have a presentation of what our plan is so far. So where we have been, in the past 3 years, we've needed to combine football teams due to low numbers. Those combinations have happened at 4 of our 5 middle schools. We combine by grade level when it comes to students, 7th grade with 7th grade and 8th grade with 8th grade. Just because of the size of students, we always felt like that was the safer way to go. But when it impacts football, it also impacted the cheerleading squads. Combinations are decided typically August 1st. That is like that first moment where we have with our students and the coaches to say, okay, how many students do we really have on our teams? We have done fairs at our buildings in the spring the year before. We've collected information from kids about who may be wanting to come out for the team. And those numbers never match our numbers as a good predictor. So August 1st has been when we all sit down and we discuss, okay, what is going to be our next steps?
Good evening. Speaking both as an athletic director, middle school athletic director, and as a middle school football coach the last 10 years, by going with this process of having to wait until August 1st, it presents some challenges in terms of getting everybody organized. It's a big task. Usually what we like to do is try to get everybody, names and parent lists and email lists together in the spring. So we go in our summer programs, but the last several years with the low numbers that we've had has presented us a challenge to have to kind of reorganize, reshift everything August 1st, and it puts us kind of behind the 8 ball in many ways. Whereas other schools and other districts that we're facing, they're off and running and moving forward. So when we moved to the 5th middle school, you saw the numbers drop. And we try to, maintain our numbers. We did everything we could within the schools. But in the last several years, the numbers have just dwindled to a point where it's become really difficult, and having to adjust, come August 1st, has presented some issues for us. So it's not just the schools, it's also at the middle school level, we're presented by the middle school OCC committee with our schedule. And so if we're waiting until August 1st or even after that to inform everybody else, you change one thing on that matrix and it presents issues for a lot of other schools, officials, parents, and everybody involved. So with this kind of, going on the last couple of years, we've been in discussion about this and looking at options. So one of the things we've done is we've come together. Mrs. Yanni is the one that's been the driving force behind this, but this is a discussion that's been going on for some time. And honestly, I'm a a resident of Westerville schools. I went to Westerville North, graduated in 91. And so I remember when there was different formats in place. And now with the position that we're in, we've been coming together trying to find solutions that would give us the best opportunity moving into our season to allow us to, hit the ground running, to be able to compete, to be able to have a great experience for our student athletes, to help promote, the game of football and beyond, and to get them to have a great, enjoyable experience to continue that in their high school years. So what we've done is we've come together with we've had family feedback at each of the middle schools to get information on how they felt about this proposal, and I'll let Mr. Gaddis share, or whoever's next, share about that.
So the proposal that we talked to families about and got some feedback about, we looked at many different options. The option that made the most sense for us was to look at our home high schools and to have our students organized by their football teams by their home high schools. So any student that has a home high school of Central would play football at Genoa. Any student that has a home high school of North would play football at Walnut Springs. And then any student that has a home high school of South would play at Minerva Park. The same thing would be for our cheerleaders. They would follow that same track. Again, we chose these 3 sites because they have football fields already associated with their buildings. So that made sense that those were the sites that we selected. Again, we would have 7th graders playing with 7th graders, 8th graders playing with 8th graders. And it also is similar to the JFLW, our Junior Football League of Westerville, which many of our students play in before they come to our middle schools. And there are also 3 football teams that run for our community in that league as well.
Yeah, so when you look at this chart, this kind of shows you some of the intro data that we looked at in terms of whether this model would actually work. And you can see the top chart represents, we looked at the current 7th, 8th, and freshman year students in terms of where would we be if we went to this model. And you can see what the numbers look like. When we had 5 middle schools and 5 separate teams, we were looking at numbers that were much thinner than this. To have a competitive football team, you need to be in, that 20, mid 20 to 30 range to really, give them the best experience possible. Last year at Genoa, we had 9 8th grade students that came out for football, and that makes it really tough, and that's why we had to kind of shift on the fly. But when you look at this model, you can see by grade level that the numbers greatly improve. And as a middle school coach looking at this and looking at numbers in the 30s, excuse me, even, that gives you a great opportunity, to put forth a great experience and compete with other, teams that we're facing. We also understand with the cheer component, cheer is a cut sport. We understand that, but we also looked at, bringing, our athletes together and having bigger teams, which would help the experience moving on to the high school level. One of the things that I know many coaches at the middle school level have promoted in the last several years, we call it the 6-year plan. When they come to us in middle school, we want to create a great experience that when they exit middle school as 8th graders, we want them to continue to be able to play at the high school level. By combining into and connecting with that high school, I think this gives us even a better opportunity to reach down to the middle school athletes, student athletes, and present a great experience for them to be excited moving forward. So there's the numbers that we were looking at when we first looked at whether this proposal, what it would look like on paper moving forward.
Good evening. So obviously this doesn't come without some potential concerns. So we started talking through what some will look like. And obviously one of the big ones becomes transportation. We were talking about moving students from one school to another. It proposes some potential challenges there. So to give students the best opportunity to play, one thing that we discussed potential solution was still have practice after school, but let's transport those students. And Mrs. Yanni worked with the transportation department to see if this is feasible, it can work. But that also means that we still need, from a building level, we want to make sure we're also providing supervision. So as a school principal, very, very important to me too. So we'd still be looking to put someone in place that's in charge of making sure the students that are at that home school are there and supervised while the other schools are coming to that building. So then when we get started, the coach will be there, we can get started right off, but then we're not providing that extra barrier where students may not be able to play at that point in time. So it's definitely one piece that we really looked at. Some other concerns that we talked about was you have the same building, different teams. So you may have a building that has 2, maybe 3 different teams in it. And I think a lot of times historically, when we look at a school, we want to think about we want our own building. And we talk about pep rallies and pieces. I will say right now in 6th grade, when you look at the JFLW, we have kids coming with multiple jerseys in all the time. Now, granted, they're not playing for Westerville City Schools, but they are playing football in our community. It also gives us a chance. I commend Ms. Yanni here for all the work she's done for the We Are the Villa campaign we've done. It gives us a chance to really put our money where our mouth is as far as celebrating us as Westerville school members. And so when we talk about recognitions or PEP assemblies, those pieces, those are things that we at the building level can address. So it seems like a concern, but I believe internally that's something that we can take a look at to really help make sure that we're supporting our kids. We're really promoting Westerville. This is year, I think, 12 for me in Westerville. One thing I really noticed when I came here from Southwestern City Schools was the sense of community, because so many kids go to school with each other, and now more and more with youth sports, more and more are playing sports with so many different people. Mr. Denny and I were talking about that. Some of our 8th graders that went to play with Heritage this year, when they walked in, they already knew a lot of those players already from playing youth sports together. So definitely some challenge, but things that we've looked at too.
So with the challenges, we did find some potential positives. The program will start building in the 7th grade versus waiting till the 9th grade for high school level sports. This is going to build relationships. The teams will have time to bond. They'll have time to grow, to get to know one another, get to know how to play within one another as a group. They give time for the coaches they get their expectations across. Game plans, that way a student is given a particular, especially in football, there's a game plan that they want to run, there's a defense, there's offense, and they're learning that from the 7th grade versus waiting till the 8th grade. I'm sorry, waiting till the 9th grade level to learn that. And then even within the program, having changes there. So it gives coaches time to make sure their expectations are in place, the student athletes know what to expect, and they will have better development under them. It'll make the program stronger all the way around. As far as booster relationships, once they reach high school, it'll help with that as far as developing fundraising that affects now, and the fundraising may only help the high school level, which it can now, if we're all as a big unit from 7 to 12, then it will go down to the 7th grade and 8th grade as well. So, and as far as the OHSAA rules, right now, since we are a group, we have a non-direct feeder program, which we learned through this process that we are one of the only school districts that do not have a feeder program compared to everyone else. So because of that, coaches now on the high school level cannot contact or talk to any middle school level players. They can't go to games. I learned that within the softball. I help coach at Blendon. My husband coaches at Westerville South. He cannot even come to watch one of our games because it would be considered recruiting. So this would help potentially eliminate that and bring us all together as one. So that is part of the rules that we have to follow. We feel that another potential positive would be that the high school coaches will now have an impact on hiring who is coaching at middle school. There is a lot of turnover a lot of times in middle school coaching, so this might help bring in people that are like, wait, we're in this for the long haul, and get coaches to stay. So it would impact the coaching hiring, strategies, mentoring opportunities for the upperclassmen high school to be able to come down and work with some of the middle school students. They look up to them already, so that way they can aid in that. So now with the relationship as we have it, it's just 9 to 12, and this will help grow to 7 to 12. And along the way of all this planning, Ms. Yanni has put together several sessions. We had 5 sessions all together. We met at different places. We met at all 5 middle schools, and brought in the community, brought in the students as well to ask them. And the main questions we ask is, what excites you about this? What worries you? What questions do you have? And what needs more clarity or support? And we did have surveys that the families filled out, and just good discussions in all of those meetings came out of that. And some of the, one was transportation that seemed to pop up at most of the meetings, and we did have them fill out the survey. So we just feel it'll be a positive.
So to that, as Ms. Millington said, we did ask for feedback from the community. Sent out had them fill out a form before they would leave. And the way we ranked them was if all the feedback was negative, it went back as negative. If it was, and even if it just even leaned negative, if it was all positive, identify as positive. And then there was some that would be, even if it was potentially mostly positive, but a couple negative or concerns, we'll rank that as the neutral piece there. So you can still see, even with that, majority of our responses were either neutral or up in the positive range.
So looking at this slide, you can see some of the other proposals that we did look at moving forward. Because there's, several ideas tossed out. So we wanted to make sure we did, our due justice in making, looking at what those numbers might be. The first chart at the top represents an idea of going to 3 teams. Now, in the past, the last, 4 years, Walnut and Blendon, because their numbers, they've had to combine each of those 4 years. This past year, like I mentioned, we were real low numbers with 8th grade at Genoa, so we combined with Heritage. Minerva Park at this point hasn't had to combine. So we looked at that. Could we just, combine 3 teams with Minerva Park kind of be on their own? But if you take a look at those numbers, Minerva Park's numbers are still 18, 20, and 20. That gets you pretty thin in terms of trying to run a successful program at the middle school level, especially when you're competing against other schools that have twice those numbers, to compete against. So that was one option we did look at. Second option was, going to 2 teams and combining, Minerva Park, Blendon, and Walnut into one, and then Genoa and Heritage. Those numbers obviously jump a lot higher into, you get in some cases, the 60 range, which is an awful lot in terms of trying to, make it the best possible experience for student athletes. So that would be a challenge with that. And there was, a comment about what if we just went to 1 team? And obviously those numbers even exceeded that as well. So we did a lot of work behind the scenes trying to kind of look at which model fit best, but these were other models that we did look at.
I just want to ask a clarifying question, Coach. On the Minerva Park by itself, when we're looking at like 18, 20 as a middle school coach, that means boys are playing both ways?
Yes.
And do you start seeing a lot of injuries and fatigue when they're playing that much?
Yeah, it makes it very difficult. And that's why I always enjoy having those numbers near 30. Because it gives you the ability to create a safe environment. Football, it's a contact sport, and you got to be very careful on how you teach it and what positions you put players in. When you're getting down, 20 or under, it gets really difficult because you have to have 11 on the field, and thus you're getting some of these individuals having to play all game. You go to a middle school game, and early in the season, first, second, third week, we're dealing with 85, 90-degree weather. It's hot. So that, you bring all those variables in. So when you get to those numbers, it's really difficult, especially when, I keep coming back to this, what other districts, have. We scrimmage Big Walnut. Big Walnut's numbers at each level is in the 40s, in the 50s. Worthington, Gahanna, Reynoldsburg, Newark, all of those districts have multiple schools and just, fewer teams. And so, yes, that when you get into those numbers right there, it makes it challenging and concerning as a coach in terms of putting the best experience forth towards our student athletes.
So our plan is to move forward. Again, the plan is that anybody that is a home high school Central, they would play at Genoa, play and cheer at Genoa. Anybody that is a home high school of North at Walnut Springs, and again at South at Minerva Park. Again, this is the most balanced numbers, looking at 3 years of data that we could see. We felt like the benefit of 7 through 12 programming. There are things there that are still challenges. We can't ignore that. I think there were going to be challenges no matter which way we slice this. We definitely wanted to get ahead of the game before August 1st because families were counting on us to have a better answer rather than switching it up at the last minute. Many of our families said in our surveys from previous years, they did not mind combining. That was not the problem. It's combining so rushed in the way that it's done. And so this helps us to get ahead of that and combine in a meaningful way. So it would give advance warning, advance notice for all of our families, all of our teams, all of our students, and our OCC as well. Our next steps from here is to share our final decision with our students, our coaches, and our families. And again, this is football and football cheer only. This is not opening everything up for all of our sports. It is only football and football cheer, but we do recognize that it is a big shift. So we want to make sure that we're communicating it out. With our HR department, we will need to, yep.
Could you just clarify, because the kids, we did middle school superintendent advisory, and we've been in the middle of doing all those, and a couple of the schools, the kids were very interested in this, as you can imagine. And there was still a little confusion with them around why it was just football and cheerleading. So I know you've shared here that it is just football and cheerleading, but could you share why we're not just doing this across the board and why it is football, not the other sports?
Yeah, of course. So currently, if you can imagine, we have got maybe 30 to 40 students try out for each one of our basketball teams. Wouldn't make sense that we would take a cut sport where we're cutting students from each one of our schools and have lots of numbers that we have there and then putting them on 3 teams instead of still having 5 teams. Same goes for many of our sports. There have been sports that we've had to combine that are not football and football cheer. For instance, we've had to combine wrestling before because we didn't have the numbers to fill out enough of a squad, but it hasn't been as consistent as football has. So this has been low numbers and low numbers consistently. And so that is the reason why we have made that shift.
We could have other sports that if we happen to have a anomaly of a low number that we would have to combine, but we're not planning to
Right.
combine other sports.
Yeah, at
Okay.
this point, we're not planning for any other sport. This is the one that has consistently shown those low numbers, and so that's why we needed to make some movement now. And again, this movement has happened throughout the entire year. We understood how big this shift would be. That's why we've been working on it for a really long time. We did share with our coaches that we were looking at these options, and when we had been talking to our high school coaches as well as our families about it. So we'll have to share with our coaches that were in previous contracts and let them know that those coaching contracts will be opening up. It will be different. And then we've reached out to our Ohio High School Athletic Association. Many of our families felt like, yes, it would be great if we could play for these different schools and play together. But if there was any way that we could play under the same colors or the same banner as the high school that would be playing for, that would make sense. And so Ohio High Schools has said that we would still need to play under the name of the school, but we do have some latitude when it comes to what they would wear. So thinking about the Ville and maybe the colors would be different. So that's something that we're going to be determining very soon. Thank you. Any other questions for the team?
Thank you so much. I know it's been a long and thoughtful process. I really, really appreciate everyone's input and the families too for taking time. And I just wanted to ask about cheer because as you mentioned, cheer is a cut sport, right? So can you talk a little bit about how we're gonna, it makes complete sense from the football angle, but can you talk about how we might manage cheer a little bit differently than we have in the past? Or if we will?
Yes, absolutely. And it will have to be different. We will have to have 2 separate tryouts, one for football cheer and one for basketball cheer. Basketball cheer will still have their, 5 different squads for the 5 different schools, where football cheer would have 3 different squads, one for each one of the teams, one at 7th grade and one at 8th grade. Those numbers on the 7th and 8th grade squads for football cheer, we're going to make sure that they're larger. When you have the entire sideline of a football field, you can make that larger team. When you've got basketball cheer, those numbers are still going to be what they have been in the past. And one of our previous slides, we put up there what our numbers would look like if they combined. So imagining that those teams would be about 15 to 17, where typically right now they're about 8 or 9. So we would see by grade level that would be a larger team, looking at about 30 kids per squad per building, mixed between 7th and 8th. Did that make sense?
Yeah, that did. Thank you.
I'm going to echo Jen's comments. I know a lot has gone into this and thoughtful planning. I'm just curious, and I may be overthinking it, but there was a mention about fundraising for those particular teams, 7th through 12th, but they're 2 separate, they are different teams. So I just curious as how that would work. Would you separate the funds so that each team gets a portion of those funds or?
So I think that what was referred to as the boosters. So whether or not our boosters could support our middle school teams would be a potential at football and football cheer, where before you have not had that
I
opportunity.
see what you're saying.
So by opening up that direct feeder line, then you have kind of opened up that wall for even more access.
Okay, thank,
Absolutely.
Yeah, as a middle school AD, especially as a football coach, knowing all that goes into making sure that the experience is great, but it's also safe for our players. If football's a contact sport, you got helmets, you got equipment that constantly needs to be updated. One of the things that excites me, at the middle school level, we don't have booster clubs. And what I always tell parents is that we get our parents in for a very short time. They come in as sixth grade, but it's towards the end of the sixth grade that they start thinking about middle school sports. So that's when we're able to reach out, connect with them, send the email out, and get them involved. But that runs through seventh grade, and then by the time they're into their eighth grade year, halfway through, now they're thinking high school. So it's a very short time to try to get the support, in which I'm not not going to complain. We've had great support, but in terms of trying to fund some of the things that we like to make sure our helmets are up to date, make sure our equipment's safe. The exciting part for me is that tie into the high school boosters. And so with this model, high school boosters can now absorb not just the four years of high school athletes, but 6 going down to seventh grade. And so when you think about making sure our athletes have top level equipment, helmets, and everything else that goes into it, as an AD, that excites me. That help of getting to make sure we put together a great experience for our student athletes.
thank you. Thanks for explaining it. Any other?
I had a question. Again, thank you for the presentation and for being thoughtful with this. You'd mentioned transportation and kind of the supervision piece is one of the challenges, and you have talked with the transportation department. Do we know how those costs would potentially be absorbed?
Well, we would have to take a look at, our athletic programs that would be running less trips to different games. So by running 3 programs instead of 5 programs, we actually would have a savings cost when it comes to transportation. That would then be displaced in the transportation cost that we would need to be incurring from shuttling students. We've done this before. We have had wrestling teams, we've had football teams that have done this before, as well as our high school marching band students that are in 8th grade. They also shuttle after school. Our transportation department does a fantastic job making sure our kids can get to where they need to be. When I call them up, they usually have a yes, we can figure that out. So I believe that it will balance each other out because of that shift of where we would be going to now what we need to be doing.
Okay, thank you.
We would also potentially have less supplementals by doing some combinations as well that could help offset some of those supervision costs that we would have to provide at the building.
That's great.
No specific question for me. I just wanted to thank you for taking time to coordinate all this. I know it takes a lot of coordination, so thank you.
We've got a great team, so thank you.
All right, thank you so much. That was great. And thanks for continuing to communicate that out. All right, moving along to 4.2, our superintendent's comments. Ms. Hamburg.
Thank you. I would also like to thank the team for coming out tonight on this lovely, almost spring evening. We appreciate you. And also along the lines of thanking people, I want to give a big thank you to our drivers and our transportation staff for navigating all the weather challenges on Friday. We had a stressful dismissal, but they handled it with grace and got our kids all home safely. And so we really appreciate that. And then would also like to, along the same line, thank our maintenance buildings and grounds crew. So they came in over the weekend to begin the cleanup. It's not all completely done, but they've gotten a lot done. And they're still assessing damages and getting all that taken care of. So just as many of your homes were hit hard by the storms, our buildings and grounds were hit as well. And so we appreciate everybody chipping in on that. We have been working, as I mentioned, with superintendent's advisory from our middle schools. So it's a lot of fun. We've had high school superintendent advisory for a while. Our team goes and meets with the kids and talks with them about issues throughout the district, gets their feedback, just generally get to know them, which is a big bucket filler for all of us. And so we're doing that now with middle school. So we had our initial get to know you meetings. We've done 4 of the 5. We have our last one, Heritage, on Monday. And then next fall, we'll bring them all over to this facility to do some leadership and team building with them. And so really excited about that. Our high school superintendent advisory kids will be kicking off their Alumni Hall of Fame induction ceremony. So the first one will be after spring break, I believe on April 8th. So that's always a really fun time to see the kids do. I know many of you have been able to attend that, especially for those of you that are newer to the board. If you haven't had a chance, it's a really great opportunity. The kids select the inductees and plan the entire thing. They do a phenomenal job. So that'll be right after spring break. And speaking of break, hopefully everyone has an opportunity to recharge and rejuvenate. Our spring break will be this year from March 30th to April 3rd. So it is a little bit later this year. Last quarter just started, which I cannot believe. Before we know it, we'll be down at the Celeste Center on May 23rd celebrating our graduates. In the meantime, looking forward to helping with the BizTown interviews, reading to students, attending events. Our team has been getting out in buildings a lot and touring, and we're really excited to be out seeing the kids. That's all I have tonight.
Thank you. Any questions or? Okay. Yeah, thank you so much to the drivers and the grounds crew. I know that some school buildings across the state actually lost some roofs, which is pretty scary. Up next is 5 in public comments, and we have none. So moving along to 6, our board meeting minutes. And may I have a motion to approve the minutes of the regular Board of Education meeting held on Monday, February 9th, 2026?
So moved.
Second.
Any comments or questions or, okay. Seeing none, would you please take the vote?
Mrs. Valentine?
Yes.
Mrs. Altman?
Yes.
Mrs. Brown? Yes. Mrs. Leban?
Yes.
Mrs. Meyer?
Yes, and moving along to 7, our financials, and 7.01, may I have a motion to approve the financial reports and investments for January and February of 2026?
So moved.
Second.
Ms. Marshall, when you get done there, will you talk to us about this?
Yes, thank you, President Meyer, members of the board. So we are going over both January and February. I'll start with January month end. Year-to-date receipts for the general fund, we ended with $113.2 million. And for year-to-date expenditures, we had $130.9 million. And we ended with an unencumbered general fund balance of $91.4 million.
We're just having technical difficulty. Oh, there, I reloaded. That's weird. Okay.
Is it not working?
Yeah, I don't know what's going on.
Is board docs not working?
No.
Oh,
Oh,
well, that's helpful.
the snow. Why not? The board docs is down. Okay. All right. Well,
Do you want me to finish?
yeah,
Okay.
thanks. Sorry.
Sorry, that's okay. And for all funds for January, we had $155.3 million in receipts and $184.2 million in expenditures. And we ended with unencumbered fund balance for all funds at $177.6 million. And that was for January month end. And then for February, for general fund, we ended with year-to-date receipts of about $140 million in total. Oh, thanks. Nah. And then year-to-date expenditures of 148.7. And then general fund, unencumbered fund balance ending February was $100 million. And then for all funds, we had $190.1 million in receipts and $206 million in expenditures. And we ended with unencumbered fund balance of $189.7 million. And that is what I had for the financial report. It is available on board docs once that starts working again,
Thank you.
which the board's had access to
Yeah,
before this
we
meeting,
have.
so.
Yes. Any questions for Ms. Marshall? Okay. Seeing none.
Mrs. Valentine?
Yes.
Mrs. Brown?
Yes.
Mrs. Altman?
Yes.
Mrs. Lieben?
Yes.
Mrs. Meyer?
Yes. Moving along to 7.02. May I have a motion to approve the purchases in accordance with Ohio Revised Code 5705.41D1 and Board Policy 6320?
So moved. Second.
And yeah,
Yeah, so this is what we call then and now purchase orders. This is where we have a purchase order that's dated after an invoice date or when goods or services were ordered. We have two on this agenda, and I'll just tell you what they are since you don't have them in front of you there. We had one from the Safety and Security Department for Genoa Township for school resource officer cost for January for $7,523.10. We did have a purchase order open, but it was just short of what was needed to cover the entire invoice. So we will need the board's approval for that. It's all been budgeted for. And then Westerville Central Class of 2027, which is student activity account, had one to, I'm not going to pronounce that correctly, an event space for 2026 prom decorations for $4,500. And that was just the timing with the student group getting the purchase order open on time. So, but it had been budgeted in their purpose and policy statement for the year. So I would recommend the board's approval so that we can get those paid.
any questions or comments? All right.
Mrs. Valentine?
Yes.
Mrs. Altman?
Yes.
Mrs. Brown?
Yes.
Mrs. Lieben?
Yes.
Mrs. Meyer?
Yes. And can we take personal consent agenda as one? Okay. May I have a motion to approve the personal consent agenda 8.01 through 8.13?
So moved. Second.
And welcome, Mr. Reeves.
Thank you, Mrs. Meyer. I'd like to present to you for your consideration tonight's personnel consent agenda, and so therefore an overview and a summary of tonight's agenda. For resignations, we have 5 classified, 4 licensed, 3 supplemental contracts, and 1 administrative resignation for the board to consider this evening. And of note, within the classified world, we've had a couple of resignations and turnover in Westerville South's front office due to a job change and retirement. And we have filled one of those vacancies with an experienced candidate, and we are approaching hiring the second candidate. So we are ready to support them as they come up with big events in the spring, namely graduation. And so we're ready to support them if they need our support. So wanted to assure the Wildcat Nation of that. Leave of absences and contract status changes. We have 1 classified and 4 licensed leave of absences to consider this evening, as well as 1 classified change of assignment and 5 classified contract status changes, accounting mainly for work schedule adjustments, which we pretty much see regularly at our board meetings. One-time pays. We have quite a few licensed one-time pays, as, believe it or not, we are now beginning our training for the first day of school with some of our student leaders. We also have one-time pays for presenters for the upcoming WE Day next Friday, March 20th. Hope Squad training, responsive classroom training for elementary staff, and a kindergarten open house. Employment, we are happy to welcome and recommend the hire of 12 new classified and 2 new licensed employees. And we are near completion for our spring supplemental hirings, as those seasons are actually now underway. And we're supposed to have a lacrosse game tomorrow when it's 20 degrees, so we're not sure if we will manage that one. Retirements. The board has 7 classified retirements and 8 licensed retirements. And you know, I have a belief that the people who have served our district should have their name said aloud at the board meeting. Diana Conrad is retiring as Assistant Manager of Food Service with 25 years of service to the district. Becky Leffler is retiring as a bus driver for 23 years of service. Leonard Myers is retiring as a bus driver with 10 years of service. Robin Oxley is retiring as a food service manager with 24 years of service. Lisa Reschke is retiring as a clerk at Charrington for serving our district for 30 years. Charlotte Richardson is retiring as a food service manager with 25 years to the district. Michelle Sorrell is retiring as a bus driver with 12 years of service to the district. Marjorie, better known as Diane Blaine, is retiring as a math teacher at Minerva Park with 10 years of service. Tanya Hallman is retiring as a physical education teacher at Genoa with 35 years of service to our district. Jill Huck is retiring as a school counselor at Minerva Park with 28 years of service to our district. Tracy Jados is retiring as an English language arts teacher at Genoa with 27 years of experience or service to our district. Jeff Kiefer is retiring as a social studies teacher at Central High School with 32 years of service to our district. Dr. Beverly Reynolds is retiring as a school psychologist at Whittier and St. Paul with 11 years of service to our district. Richard Shell is retiring as a social studies teacher at South with 34 years of experience or service to our district. And finally, last but not least, Katrina Turner is retiring as a grade 5 teacher at Robert Frost with 32 years of service to the district. If you add up the collective service of this large and impressive group of retirees, their total years of service to Westerville schools is 358 years. And their collective service takes us back to the year 1668, where I had to dig and find out that the Massachusetts colony annexed Maine. In what sounds like a Pirate of the Caribbean movie, Captain Henry Morgan, yes, that Captain Morgan from the rum bottles, captured Portobello in modern-day Panama and modern-day Camagüey, Cuba, to solidify his reputation as the leader of the Brethren of the Coast. Famed sculptor Bernini neared completion of the now famous 10 angel sculptures atop the Ponte di Sant'Angelo, which I have actually seen in Rome, and a little closer to home. By 1668, the Iroquois Confederacy, or better known as the Haudenosaunee in their mother tongue, has gained control over the Ohio Valley, and French explorer La Salle, or René Robert Cavelier Sieur de La Salle, as he is known in his mother tongue, was a French explorer who had gathered information from local tribes to explore a great river that flowed into the ocean, which we call the Ohio River. I'm happy to take any questions you may have. Thank you to Gertie and Ms. Altman for the
I'm gonna ask Gertie how you did on your
tongue
pronunciation.
pronunciations.
No,
Yes.
he tried. We'll give him an A for effort.
It sounded very impressive, though. I will say. Thank you for that. Any questions or comments? Just wow, that's a lot of years. So thank
A
you
lot of years of service.
Sure.
Thank you.
to our staff that are leaving us. We'll miss them. Yep.
Mrs. Brown?
Yes.
Mrs. Altman?
Yes.
Mrs. Levan? Yes. Mrs. Valentine?
Yes.
Mrs. Meyer?
Yes. And can we take old business as one? Okay. May I have a motion to approve old business 9.01 through 9.07?
So moved.
Second.
And it looks like my board docs is back up. Does
Yeah,
everybody have their
yeah,
stuff up?
yeah, thank you. And I know we haven't heard anything back about the academic calendar. Have we heard anything else about any of the other order? Okay. All right. Unless there's any comments or questions, we're ready to take the vote.
Mrs. Altman?
Yes.
Mrs. Levan?
Yes.
Mrs. Brown?
Yes.
Mrs. Valentine?
Yes.
Mrs. Meyer?
Yes. Moving along to 10, new business, and 10.01, the first reading of policy 3130, assignment and transfer. And Mr. Reeves, will you talk to us about this?
Thank you. This policy 3130, assignment and transfer. The biennium budget bill included a provision declaring that the superintendent shall assign teachers based on the best interest of students enrolled in the district. The law further provides that seniority and continuing contract status cannot be the primary factors in making assignment decisions. The law also provides that collective bargaining agreements cannot supersede the assignment language, and for districts with collective bargaining agreements in place, as we have for a few months more, the law does not apply until the expiration of the current contract. The policy 3130 has been revised and updated to reflect this change in the law that was in our budget bill.
Any questions from Mr. Reeves? Okay, thank you. And moving along to 10.02, the first reading of policy 7310, disposition of surplus property. Ms. Dennis.
Hi, good evening, President Meyer, Vice President Altman, members of the board. The policy 7310 in front of you, the disposition of surplus property, is related to changes that would align with both state and federal requirements. A lot of it is focused on surplus goods of the federal nature. So if you think about our food service operations is a federal program, so it's a little separate than our local programs. And then also if we would have any grant funded materials as well, it would be federal grants. Most items in there are housekeeping, and I'd be happy to answer any questions you might have.
Any questions at this time? All right.
Thank you.
Thank you. All right, moving along to 10.03, first reading of policy 8600, transportation, and I'm sure you'll be staying up here for 10.04, first reading of policy 8600.04, and actually all the rest. 10.5, first reading of policy 8640, that's transportation for non-routine trips, as well as 10.06, the first reading for policy 8650, transportation by alternative vehicles. So why don't you tell us about all of this, Mr. Snyder?
If it would be okay with the board, I believe I could address all four of these together as one.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you. President Meyer, Vice President Altman, members of the board, Superintendent Hamburger, and Treasurer Marshall, good evening. So before you this evening, first up is policy 8600, which is really the framework that starts us and prepares us for the next three that are also up for revision tonight and gives us the foundation of our transportation operations. The first thing and the most important call out, I believe, is Westerville City Schools continues to exceed state minimum requirements for our transportation. For example, providing transportation to our high school students is above and beyond what the state requires, which is grades K through 8. The majority of these updates this evening are housekeeping, changes in the Ohio Revised Code, and also some definitions, which you'll see in policy 8600.04, which starts to utilize the term alternative vehicles, which for many years we've referred to as vans or sedans. But ultimately, an alternative vehicle is anything that is not designed like a school bus, but rather our MyVan program, which has been in existence since 2018. This policy brings more changes again within the Ohio Revised Code as housekeeping items for our policy 8600.04. One minor change in policy 8640, which is adding the language referring to our level 2 volunteers, which are individuals that have been cleared through a school office to provide chaperone supervision, if you will, on a vehicle during a field trip. So that's policy 8640. And then finally, policy 8650, once again, is aligning this policy with our current operation standards with the revised Ohio Revised Code. And once again, this also defines the use or term of alternative vehicle. So between these four policies, the majority of the updates this evening is truly housekeeping, but also ensuring that our current practices, which we are doing today, are referenced in policy, which reflect back to the updates in ORC. And I would certainly be happy to entertain or answer any questions that you might have this evening.
Thank you. I don't have any questions, but I wanted to call out that level 2 volunteer piece. Just as a parent, I can't tell you how many times there have been situations where our schools have needed a level 2 volunteer at the last minute, in order to, stay safe according to our policies. So I just would really encourage people to look at that level 2 volunteer process and think about going through it so that they can be helpful in these ways. And who should they, I know there's information on the website, but if you want to talk through the process real quickly, just because it's relevant.
Yeah, there's information on the website, and then our human resources officers department, human resources department, or our chief officer, Reeves, who's been up at the podium a few times, would be a good contact point, or anyone on his team.
Yeah, great, thank you. Because there are limitations in terms of what you can do with field trips and so on if you don't have those people in place. So just encouraging everyone to look at that. Thanks.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone.
Okay, moving along to 11, recommended action standing business. And we have 11.01 donations, and may I have a motion to approve the donations as presented.
So moved.
Second.
This is the fun part of the night too, huh? Ms. Marshall, will you talk to us about this?
Yes, so the total for the current request is $19,995.42, which brings the current fiscal year to date total to $214,362.62. Very generous community that supports our kids, so.
Very generous indeed. And thank you to the community for continuing to make these donations. Anybody have any questions about them? All right.
Mrs. Valentine?
Yes.
Mrs. Brown?
Yes.
Mrs. Leban?
Yes.
Mrs. Altman?
Yes.
Mrs. Meyer?
Yes. And moving along to 11.02, out-of-state overnight trips. May I have a motion to approve the out-of-state overnight trips?
So moved.
Second.
Welcome, Ms. Asher.
Thank you. I have 4 overnight trips for your consideration this evening. The first is a collective effort with all of our world language departments at all 3 high schools. They would like to travel to the Dominican Republic in June of 2028. It is for an EF Tours Spanish and Service project, and whether or not they will go on this trip will depend on the number of students that sign up for it. And due to the fact that it is in June, students will not miss any days of school, and it will be no cost to the district. The Westerville North Marching Band would like to travel to Orlando, Florida in February of 2027. Students will perform a prepared marching performance in a Disney World park. So they will join a parade. The cost to the district is $300 for substitutes, and they will miss 1 day of school. The Westerville South and Central DECA programs recently had 5 students qualify for the national competition. They would like to travel to Atlanta, Georgia in April of this year. The cost to the district will be $1,400. However, it will be funded through the Student Activity Fund, which is comprised of fundraisers and donations. We have 5 students who would be attending, and they will miss 3 days of school. And the last one is an amended trip that was approved earlier for Westerville South to attend the State Thespian Conference. Both Westerville North and Westerville Central would like to join them on this trip. Approximately 70 students from all 3 high schools will attend, and they will miss 1 day of school, and this trip is booster funded. And I'm happy to answer any questions.
For me, could you tell me a little bit about DECA, what that is?
Yes, so DECA is a national program in which students begin businesses and they compete at the state and national level. So we had a number of students, this is the first year that they have competed at this level. And so students went to the state competition in, I want to say January. And we had 5 that qualified, so they will go and compete against their peers at the national level.
Any other questions? All right, thank you.
Thank you.
Please take the vote.
Mrs. Altman?
Yes.
Mrs. Valentine?
Yes.
Mrs. Brown?
Yes.
Mrs. Leban?
Yes.
Mrs. Meyer?
Yes, and moving along to 11.3, may I have a motion to approve the amended resolution accepting the amounts and rates as determined by the Budget Commission and authorizing the necessary tax levies and certifying them to the county auditor?
So moved.
Second.
Ms. Marshall, will you talk to us about all of that?
Yes, so these are the rates for tax year 2025 that have been finalized by the County Budget Commission, which our County Budget Commission is Franklin County. Even though we span multiple counties, we span into Delaware County. But Franklin County is our Budget Commission. They've approved these rates for collection in 2026, which are tax bills that are due now. And then you'll see the next resolution is estimating rates for tax year 2026 to be collected in 2027, in which case we'll come back and adjust those rates then. So these are in order for where we've been collecting. Nothing surprising here. But I'll talk a little bit more about on the next resolution some of the changes with the law recently.
Okay, any questions? Okay, will you please take the vote?
Mrs. Altman?
Yes.
Mrs. Valentine?
Yes.
Mrs. Brown? Yes. Mrs. Libyan?
Yes.
Mrs. Meyer?
Yes. And moving along to 11.04, may I have a motion to approve the resolution accepting the amounts and rates as determined by the Budget Commission and authorizing the necessary tax levies and certifying them to the county auditor?
So moved.
Second.
Ms. Marshall, will you?
So again, these are 2026 estimated rates. We're in tax year 2026. We always pay taxes a year behind. So they're assessing taxes for 2026 to be paid in 2027. There was a House Bill 309 that was signed into law in December by the governor that changes the Budget Commission's authority, gives them the authority to basically adjust tax rates down as they see necessary. That doesn't take effect until March 30th of 2026. So there is a potential for these rates to change in the future. But I'm not really anticipating that this year with our Budget Commission, but I do think we'll have to have a conversation about how we participate in that process going into the 2027 Budget Commission meeting when they have that next. It's usually due by January and they have the meeting in February. So that is something that we want to keep an eye on and make sure that we're paying attention to. But right now, these are the estimated rates. They're the same rates that you just approved. They finalized it for tax year 2025. They use those as estimates for 2026.
And remind me, I may be forgetting, but what's the criteria for determining
So
the change?
our tax rates
yeah.
are based on right now the values. So we have inside millage. We're just talking about property taxes here. This doesn't affect the earned income tax that was just
Right.
passed. They are set based on, we have the inside millage, which was set by the state constitution. Ours is 3.8 mils, so that stays the same. That never changes. Everything else above that have been voted on by our voters
Mhm.
in the community. And so we are subject to reduction factors as values increase, tax rates decrease. And so that's what they're doing. They're adjusting those rates right now based on where values went in 2025 for like what the actual values were and using estimates for this year. The law that was passed has a provision about what's necessary collections and all of that. It's very arbitrary, and I think we need to remember that you are our locally elected
Mhm.
Board of Education. We have services and things that our community expects from their school district, and really I think you guys are the best judge of what that looks like. So it's just a matter of having that conversation if we need to in the future with the Budget Commission.
So it's basically, that's what I was trying to get at. Thank you. This new House Bill 309 provision. So basically we have to go down and we have to make our case as to why we feel.
So I think being in Franklin County is a little bit different, but we have 88 counties in the state of Ohio, and I think you're going to see it done about 88 different ways. I think that there's a lot of opportunity for just variances in how this is applied across the state. I know some counties, some school districts went through a pretty significant process this past year, like just in January and February for the current 2025 tax year. So yeah, I think it's almost like they have to defend what they're collecting based on what the voters approved, and it's overriding the voters' voice and at the ballot box for sure. So
Thank you. That's what I was really trying to get at. Okay. Any other questions? All right. Will you please take the vote? Yeah.
Mrs. Brown?
Yes.
Mrs. Valentine?
Yes.
Mrs. Altman?
Yes.
Mrs. Libyan?
Yes.
Mrs. Meyer.
Yes. And moving along to 12.01, may I have a motion to approve a resolution to suspend Robert's Rules of Order?
So moved.
Second?
Take the vote.
Mrs. Brown.
Yes.
Mrs. Altman.
Yes.
Mrs. Levan.
Yes.
Mrs. Valentine.
Yes.
Mrs. Meyer.
Yes. And, yep. Yep.
Yeah, so as
Welcome.
they're getting seated, Mrs. Dennis will be kind of leading this conversation, but we've also asked Mr. Cooper, Mr. Reeves to come up. So as we start talking about uses of buildings, if, there's anything that kind of spills over into their areas as well. But just again, looking for some conversation today with the board about direction moving forward with facilities and specifically some of the funding that we were discussing last meeting so that we have some clarity around what to bring you next meeting. So that's the board today. Carrie, you all set?
I just want to take note that while I'm here representing Conversation tonight, Dr. Worth came to our evening, got here this evening, not yesterday, but I did not want to assume for just here we go. All right. So I just wanted to remind everyone about the history of our facility master plan. The work started in 2017 with 19 members on this facility master planning committee and represented by 9 of the 22 The work of the committee led to the board-approved facility master plan in 2019. The board established the scope and timeline of the district's facility master plan based upon the recommendations from that facility master planning committee. The importance behind the development of this plan was to do projects past patchwork renovations. It was to address the oldest buildings in our fleet of schools and provide modern technology in those spaces. Along with that, we added a new elementary school and a new middle school to meet the needs of our community and provide those educational spaces a little closer to home too. It also provided for significant improvements in our safety and security plans across the district. It was also a two-phase plan. So as we are wrapping up these phase 1 projects, I think it's important that we can have a conversation about where we're at and what's coming next. Funding mechanisms for capital projects, always a good reminder that all capital projects across the district have different sources of which we receive funding from. So we have some general fund, which is limited projects and also includes things like design services. Those are not the only two things, but those are good examples of what general fund is used for. The PI, or Permanent Improvement Fund. So as part of the 2019 ask, it included establishing the Permanent Improvement Fund, the PI fund, a part of it. For 2019? Okay. Apologies. District leadership at that time did designate, though, that these funds would be used to replace district vehicles, including vans, buses, the white fleet, along with custodial equipment, our grounds equipment, things like that. Also, AV upgrades, music equipment, furniture replacements. It pays for the COPS financing, which we'll talk about in a second. And then what's remaining funds building and site projects. So things like the majority of it goes to our HVAC, also some paving, some playground equipment replacement as well. The certificates of participation, or the COPS financing, is what has funded the Westerville South High School renovation project. Also did some limited district-wide camera and access control as part of that work as well. Then there were the bond funds. The uses are described in the ballot language, but not limited to the work that I mentioned. So you have the addition of Minerva France Elementary School and Minerva Park Middle School. We did renovations and additions at Hawthorne Elementary School and Whittier Elementary School, and Amherst. And then infrastructure replacements and upgrades at Hanby, Emerson, and Emerson. There is language in there for Longfellow as well in the plan itself, which we'll talk about here in a minute. And then we had safety and security updates. Secured entry projects was primarily the bond fund. And then some playground and parking lots as well. In 2019, the district also entered into an agreement with the Ohio Facilities Construction Commission, also known as the OFCC, which oversees capital projects undertaken by state agencies and state-supported institutions of higher education. It manages Ohio's school facility programs and provides support for construction renovation of public K-12 schools. Projects are funded through a number of programs, including the Expedited Local Partnership Program. It's designed to give districts who are not quite eligible for the Classroom Facilities Assistance Program the opportunity to move ahead with their portions of their projects and earn credits, which we have done. It's 35 cents on the dollar of the work that aligns with the Ohio School Design Manual. So I think we have about 25 million in credits that we're anticipating receiving when we become eligible. The original 2019 agreement was modified in 2022 to include the last 3 phases of Westerville South High School. So while those were, the project was done at Westerville South using existing resources and not bond funds, that work is still part of the ELP program. And so we did receive credits on the last 3 phases of completed work at South. And then as far as the Classroom Facility Assistance Program or CFAP eligibility, they won't tell you when. They give you a rough window when you get started, and they keep you updated along the way as you meet at least annually or quarterly with them. Both Nicole, myself, and Doug have met recently with some representatives from OFCC, and we are led to believe that our number is probably going to be called pretty soon. What that means when that happens is we'll have some more conversation as a board and leadership team around what does that work actually look like moving forward as well. It's exciting. I think Nicole shared previously, like it was 5 to 7 years for about 8 years. So 6 to 7. Good job, Nicole. So, right. Just real quick about the CFAP program, I want to make sure the board understands. So once we're part of the CFAP program, that means that we would be eligible for that 25 million in credit that we've already accumulated on the older projects to apply to a future project, and also everything 35 cents on the dollar for all the new work that's being done. So it's a great opportunity if that is the case. And that's work that aligns with the Ohio School Design Manual. They are pretty prescriptive about what they cover. So it wouldn't be every single thing, but it would be the bulk of the work. Just all the details. So what's next? Like I mentioned, and like Doug mentioned in the last, at the last board meeting in February, we did an update. We are closing out those projects that are aligned in the phase 1 of the facility master plan, meaning that we are just at kind of warranty pieces and punch items from what was designed and bid in that work. We have some capital needs, always. We have aging buildings and like anybody who owns any property, a home, a car, anything, things need to be maintenance and taken care of, and they have a replacement cycle on them. And then to have some conversation around the remaining bond funds and bond interest. We were able to secure really great bids along the way, which means that we do have some bond funds that are remaining as those projects close out, and how we can utilize those best. And then Longfellow. Longfellow was in phase 1 of the work, and I'd like to talk to you guys a little bit about the work that we will do there, that we're proposing to do there. And then Westerville South, and we'll have some conversation about that. I want to note that, like I mentioned, with the potential to become CFAP eligible in the near future, and just kind of looking at the long term for our district, I know that Superintendent Hamburg previously shared that we're doing a facilities committee. We're excited about getting that work underway, moving it past just the facility master plan and talking about the district's facility as a whole and kind of some long-term planning. How do we use buildings? What's the best things to move forward? What we are looking at is a committee comprised of community members who have some expertise in this area. So it'll be district representative and community representative as we get that going, hoping to have things in place and hold a first meeting probably sometime in May. That's the goal right now. So let's talk about Longfellow. So Longfellow opened in 1931. It is a beautiful building. When you look at it in this picture, it looks huge. It actually has 6 classrooms. It has no gymnasium, no cafeteria, but it does have a single multi-purpose space. At times housed art, music, and lunch, as well as possibly some gym every once in a while, or definitely indoor recess. This school is identified as part of the Phase 1 facility master plan work. It does have some bond funds designated to it. The scope and associated funds were intended to undertake the following types of scope as identified. It also aligns with the work that was done at Hamby and Emerson, but Hamby and Emerson house students today. But the scope initially intended was HVAC, interior painting, some flooring updates, including carpet and tile areas, lighting upgrades, replacement of student furniture. It also included adding an elevator. However, the district has moved away from this facility serving as an all-day kindergarten location. As we added Minerva France to our elementary schools, we were able to move the all-day kindergarten programs back to kids' home schools. The expansion at their home school allowed us to utilize this building for our Best of Both Worlds program, which is a transition initiative formerly housed on Otterbeis campus. It's a federally required program that serves Westerville City School students who are postgraduate age, but they are learning independent skills and enhancing their job skills. They take up a couple of classrooms within this building to work on those skills together. And then the other remaining spaces house our related services staff along with our some curriculum materials. Our related services staff provide, not limited on this list because they do a lot, but OT, PT, speech services, behavioral services, gifted services throughout our district. So they go to any number of our buildings. They don't have a single home building, and this provides workspaces for them to do their work. It's like their touchdown space. Given that this building no longer houses K-5 students, we are suggesting tonight that the long-term use and purpose of the building and the associated bond funds need us to have this conversation together. The district's facilities team, which includes myself, Doug, we've actually talked with some of our leadership as well, and then Bob Lateria, who's our coordinator of maintenance, buildings and grounds, reviewed the recommended scope, and we think that it needs alignment to the actual building's light use today and moving forward. That would include amending the work to be addressing the exterior brick repairs, both the chimney and facade brick, also including cleaning and sealing of the brick. That'll help the longevity of the care. It also keeps the moisture from wicking inside the building. Also some HVAC work and addressing some asphalt and parking lot pieces. We reduced the scope of replacing student furniture as it would not be necessary. At this time, we don't see the need to add an elevator into this space, as we can provide workspaces on the first floor as appropriate if somebody would need it. And then it would also, the tile, the painting, things like that, everything's in good shape. We did paint this building prior to opening as an all-day kindergarten building, so it's just not necessary to do at this time. From Longfellow, I'll talk about Westerville South. Again, it's a COPS-funded project. This was not part of the bond funds. It has been a commitment of the board to use existing dollars to complete all renovations at Westerville South. Here are just a few images of some completed work that we shared at the February meeting. Always a favorite of mine, and anytime I'm in the building, I always try to get into a classroom because you get to see how beautiful these classroom spaces are. South how was able to really pull in the natural exterior, all that extra light with these beautiful windows into their spaces through this project. And those are not the spaces the public often gets to see. So my favorite space, like honestly, some of my favorite classrooms in the district. You also have the front office and then one of the project-based learning spaces in the images there. South was a long project. It has been a long project. It was, the intent and purpose behind it was for it to be a long project. It turned into 6 phases. Here. And at this time, we have completed phases 1 through 6 and addressed all of the originally planned programmatic and related scope. It still leaves us about 8,000 square feet of original space that has not been renovated. Outside of the fire alarm and other life safety updates, we have addressed all of those building-wide or are completing those. The fire alarm systems will be completed when we do not have students in the building come early summer. And that's occurred over, again, the whole school. As this project has been a lengthy one, and as students and staff have lived and worked in these spaces, they have openly shared their desire to address the remaining square footage of this building, along with some other things that would help them use the building in the best manner moving forward. Lots of feedback from them. Doug and I met with a group of staff from South in early 2025 to kind of talk about what they would be looking for if we were to move forward with an additional scope of work here at South. That turned into these images. I will tell you, these are not permanent designs, they're just examples. I think it's very important. We have not designed any of this work. We are just trying to understand what that might look like. If you're a visual learner like I am, this is very helpful. In the upper left-hand corner, we would be addressing the front lobby entrance, along with what you see in the center, which is the theater lobby, bringing both of those spaces up to match the remainder of the other common spaces in the building. When you think about what the commons or cafeteria looks like, these spaces would reflect very similar to that. Just those public spaces to all feel very cohesive. In the hallways, like you see on the right-hand side, one of the challenges that we have shared previously, I can't say enough, is the building had a very low drop ceiling, much like a drop ceiling you have in this space. The kids said, can we like raise the roof a little bit? Well, you can't raise it. There's a second floor. So if we removed the drop ceiling and exposed some of that more modern kind of look to it, added the color in, much like you see that saturation of color in the blue wing, that's all part of the wayfinding in the building. Well, during the supply chain issues and post the wonderful things of 2020, while it got painted, it didn't get painted with the accent color because we couldn't get the tint for the paint. So it left kind of a cream color all the way through, from the base color on the walls, the floors, and the ceiling. It's all just kind of very neutral feeling. Kind of unfinished, it feels. It's not, but it does feel that way. We'd like to take the opportunity to go back and finish that, make it look as it was intended to in the beginning of the project. Additionally, the kids are asking for a school store. This building had a school store, a very robust program actually. That space was utilized to create some restrooms actually in the back of the building as part of the addition back there in the early phases of the project. We have an underutilized available space in the front of the building that was formerly the attendance office that we could create this space for the students. You kind of see in concept where the paw is, the Wildcat paw in the upper left-hand picture is the wall of what that would be. It abuts the clinic. And then back behind what was formerly the competition gym, now the auxiliary gym, there were all of the locker spaces that would have supported a competition gym space that we could renovate to house designated storage spaces. Always a premium. And I know that can sound a little silly, but when you're looking at a place to get things out of hallways, your mats, your gym equipment, different PE equipment, things like that, we could create space for that, along with creating a receiving area for the building for our custodial team. That enhances safety pieces for the building. So you would be taking delivery straight into a receiving space versus having somebody making a delivery come into the building. This part of the building abuts right to the parking lot, and we could enhance that by utilizing this space. Also puts more traffic in this back hallway, which we always appreciate. And then we would also look at some additional curriculum storage spaces back here. Curriculum storage is often always housed in temporary spaces. What's available and where can we put it? This would allow us to really pull it all together and allow it to have a place where it lives, and so that it's not being moved around and it can be best utilized from a central location. So, I said a lot. This is a part where we could talk. Moving forward, like I mentioned, the amended proposed scope of work to align with the building use at Longfellow. What this means is that we would reduce that budget significantly, allowing those dollars to go towards the HVAC work that we would do, both the FY26 proposed work and FY27 as well. if the board is in support of doing that. That's really what we need to know collectively, where the board's at.
And again, we would be looking to bring some action items to you next month, but just trying to give some guidance on kind of what direction we need to go in preparing those. Just looking for some feedback today.
Consolidating the remaining bond funds and the interest that remains, so that we can fund the HVAC projects would allow us to use our permanent improvement dollars that we would typically use for HVAC projects for this proposed final scope at South. I think I should also mention that this is not work that we would just be moving based off that slide. We would be meeting with staff and administration at the building and some students again. Our superintendent advisory group at South has been very vocal about what else they'd like to see in the building. It's a great group of kids to get feedback from, but I know that's not the only kids in the building to get feedback from. But getting their input as we move into the design work. None of that would go fast. There's a process around any proposed design. The board would be approving a lot of things along the way, but it would have to start with an RFQ for architect, engineering, and design services. So, what questions do you have? Go ahead.
Sorry. Currently, how many schools would be in need of HVAC work that we're looking at?
Yeah, so FY26 includes 7 buildings. Some of that work is the Longfellow building, so there would be bond funds already designated for that HVAC work. But you're also looking at Central, which I know sometimes we think of Central being a new building, but it is aging on us. It opened in the early 2000s, so it's time to start getting in and doing a lot of that work. But yes, it does include 7 buildings in total.
Go ahead, Jen. No, go ahead.
There are lots of pieces in here to comment on, and I want to let other folks go first on some of this, but I will just say, as somebody who's had one child or another at Westerville South since 2017, that area of the building is, I think, really problematic. In that it's sort of a no person's land, right? It's like it's an area of the building that I can imagine as adults during the day it's very hard to keep your eyes on. It's kind of separated from classrooms. And I know that storage space, is really at a premium in that building. So I just want folks to understand that if you haven't been in that part of South, it sort of feels a little lost right now in terms of the renovations that happened around it, and was never planned to be part of the original renovations. But I think people who are in the building can really see there's some real needs that part of the building can meet, and they're not high intensity needs. So I'm, really supportive of trying to make that happen in order to support programs in the building, but also just, I think, to make the building more functional and allow adults to keep their eyes on parts of the building that they need to be on during the school day.
And that is actually some very fair feedback and a lot of how we decided what we could put back there. So you're talking about a lot more adult presence, just general traffic, how frequent the custodians are in and out of those spaces, along with your PE teachers, your curriculum staff even as they're coming in and out, and the needs of things of just put more eyes back there. We always welcome that.
Yeah, my question, thank you, because when we were discussing Longfellow, you had shared we would potentially be looking at adding more asphalt and doing the parking lot renovations. As someone that's maybe not in the, obviously as board members, we're not in the day-to-day work. But I wanted to know, could you just educationally take a step back and help us understand, or help me understand, how you prioritize some of these projects, right? Like when I'm thinking about Longfellow, obviously we have the Best of Both Worlds program, but as you just shared, it's not we don't get as much traffic compared to some of our other buildings. So why would we prioritize something that may seem simple, externally, like parking lot repair, versus maybe reimagining some of the space to give more staff like office space, because I know that was another need as well. Could you just kind of talk to us about how you prioritize those specific projects as we think about feedback and potential recommendations?
Sure. So something like paving in general, not just even at Longfellow, is not just done by one individual. We do bring people in to assess the condition. You're looking at how thick it is, how much it's wearing through. Can we patch it and get a little bit more time out of it versus a full replacement? At Longfellow, you'd be looking at a patch. While it is a small parking lot and its use does seem to be limited in comparison to other buildings, and you consider how much traffic we have even come through this building, we look at how much can we get done with the funds that we have available. And that is just kind of the environment that we're in. So we address those that have the most need first, and then we're kind of working down the list. Our goal would be to be able to do all of our parking lots, but it's going to take some time to accomplish that if you consider how much square footage of blacktop that we have throughout the district. So you'll see patching and not a full replacement at Longfellow. We have some safety concerns just on the asphalt side of things where we park our buses. The lot itself is getting thinner on the asphalt side, so the weight of the buses and the conditions that it is causing the tires to cause some pretty big ruts. And when you think about going out there and walking between a bus to get on your bus or not, we need to address that for the safety of our drivers and also the safety of our buses, because as they get into those divots, they're more likely to have little rear end bumping happening at the same time at the back of the buses because they back those in. So we start to look at safety. So it's condition, it's safety, and it's available funds. Those are really what it comes down to. It's not collectively one person who makes that decision, though. It is made as a group. Mm-hmm.
And in some cases, we actually look at, does it make more sense long-term, right, cost-wise, to replace rather than just patch?
Yeah, definitely. When you continue to make investments every 4 to 5 years to patch things versus a full replacement where you can get much longer out of it, you start to look at that investment piece. Yes.
I wanted to build upon what Ms. Altman said. I am happy that we're looking at finishing south. It does feel kind of disjointed when you're walking through there, and I love the new spaces. They feel really bright and open and welcoming. And I appreciate the thoughtfulness around the curriculum storage, because I imagine people are trying to store things in every which place, and we could lose that curriculum. And now we potentially, right? Not that we're trying, but we have it all in one spot now. We can make sure that we're being really efficient with our resources. You had mentioned talking, and I appreciate you guys. I remember you guys did go back to South and talk to the staff and to students, and that you're going to talk to the Student Advisory Council. I'm curious, how would others other students, you said we're not just going to ask the student advisory, but how would other students be able to provide some of that input that may be useful in understanding the broader scope of what's happening in the building?
I would lean towards my academic partner over here, Mr. Cooper, along with Ms. Asher, who oversees secondary academics as well, to tap into the building leadership and figure out how we can get some feedback from kids and how we can really pull it together. So the other piece will come is that we still will not be able to do every single thing that everybody wants to do. We will have to prioritize with the available funds that we would have and make sure that we are getting the most movement that we can with the available dollars that we have. So that would be how I would do it. Mr. Cooper, you want to share how you would gain some of that feedback?
Yeah, I would just note that our superintendent's advisory is just one group that meets with us directly. The principal has groups within the school, some of our teacher committees as well, and that's more of our indirect feedback that we get from them. So that's direct to them and then comes to us. So would certainly be open to the ideas. I think that's where we do our best, is when we can get ideas from everyone to consider. And although you can't do all things, being able to consider multiple ideas would definitely help us to get to a good spot with everything.
Thank you. I appreciate the thoughtfulness. I know a lot has gone into thinking about how we can use these additional funds and what's a priority and finishing south. And it's been a long journey. And I know there's been a lot of angst, but also a lot of work that's gone into really addressing those issues.
Thank you, guys. I had a couple of questions. So, with Longfellow, we said that we didn't need to put an elevator in because we can house folks on the first floor for like ADA compliance reasons. So, we're all good with like the ADA compliance on that building. Like, it's not required that we have an elevator there.
Correct. The
All right.
building is grandfathered in from that exception unless we renovate it and add one. And then that would change our requirements moving forward.
And when we were going to put it in, it's because we had the whole building full of kindergartners, right? So we might have a kindergartner that needed to go, but with limited classrooms, the students that use the 2 classrooms, those are both on the first floor.
Yes,
Currently
and-
for Best of Both Worlds.
Correct. And even when we opened it up to an all-day kindergarten program, we were limited to all-day kindergarten program in the first 4 classrooms because
Great.
the building didn't contain that. Prior to its use was a magnet school, and so it had 1st through 5th grade programming in it. So just imagine trying to figure out what student body could be in what buildings and how challenging that would have been without an elevator. We do have them in Emerson and Hanby, so we've been able to renovate those 2 buildings based upon the needs of having them open for kids.
Okay. And then my other question is, so there's a lot less that we need to do at Longfellow now that we're not housing kids in there. How much, like dollar figure wise, are we saving by not having to make all of those different adjustments and improvements at Longfellow that we are then able to, I'm assuming we're able to then use those to kind of shift resources to other projects?
Yeah, it would reduce the budget significantly, down to, we're estimating, and these are estimates, obviously, we have to bid projects, we don't get numbers for fun, but about $372,000 of work that needs to be completed there. Saving, or not saving, but reducing the budget by $683,000.
Okay, so about 683, that'll be able to be kind of reallocated. Okay, great, thank you.
And I think you said this time or last time or maybe both, but just to emphasize the work that we would continue to do, really focusing on that building envelope so that we don't get water damage inside that causes more down the road. So still needing to do that regardless of the use.
Yeah, and our maintenance team does a phenomenal job of addressing issues as they have come up. So there was even some identified scope in 2018 assessment that our team has already addressed because it needed to be done ahead of the actual project. So that reduced some of the scope as well. It wasn't just that we're opting not to do things. They have already addressed things. So
Great, thank you.
Go ahead. Yeah.
With the South project, I know we had kind of talked about, you mentioned like it's been a little bit lived in for the last few years. So there's some feedback coming from kids having utilized the space. And then as we're moving forward for the next phase of the project, are we able to make changes to, paint that we're using or the type of flooring that we're using? Like if something feels that it's not holding up from the previous work, are we able to then make changes going forward to something that's going to be more durable?
I'll be honest, that has not landed on our list yet. I think that it would be worth a conversation to understand, is that something that, one, does it still have a warranty? When was it done? Does the flooring, has it held up in the manner in which it was supposed to? So we'd want to look at it that way first. And then I think we'd have some collective conversation about if that's where the best use of the funds would be. I would like to say yes, absolutely. But how can we accomplish the most of what the building needs? And does that become a maintenance replacement versus the use of this funding as a capital project? There's a balance in how we assess where things get done. And I know that sounds really strange. But there are some things that we have in attic stock. So when you do a project, you get a certain amount of materials. So when you get a tear in a carpet piece, you can replace the carpet square. If you've got flooring that's gone bad in a spot, you can pull those out and put fresh in. Is that what we need to do versus doing a full replacement?
And I think she was asking more like, instead of continuing to use that same product in another area, is that what you meant?
Right,
Or-
if we're seeing, like if we had used a paint color previously or a type of paint that we saw is now seeing a lot of wear and tear over the years, are we able to kind of shift to a new product that might have more durability
Absolutely.
pretty easily? Is that
Yeah, absolutely. As any of us know who painted our homes, you can get the same color with about 5 different names. And you can get it for 6 different brands. And some of them have different wear and tear and different sheens, all kinds of things. And yes, if we are seeing that, that is absolutely adjustments we can make along the way. We do that all the time. It's not unusual.
And if we go forward with all this work, for those that are at South that have probably lived through all of these renovations, what should they expect in terms of, is this happening during the school year? Are we working during the summer? What does that look like?
So the large workspace behind the now auxiliary gym, that is not currently a high flow student area. So I would imagine that some of that work could happen during the school year as long as we can secure the spaces. The stuff in the hall, painting the hallways, that's going to occur when kids are not in the building. So you may come back from a break and see that parts of it are done. But it would have to be done when kids are not there, when it's the least disruptive to the educational environment. That's always our goal first. So a lot of this work that we have had discussion around is more cosmetic than it is structural or architectural changes. The actual timeline will need to be developed as we identify the work itself, though. So we can come back and talk about that when it's time. But we always focus on kids first in that academic environment.
I think the difference, obviously late to the game compared to most of you, but the difference on this phase is it's not a lot of classroom spaces. So previously we had to move a wing of kids to repurpose a wing into different types of classroom space. So, like the school store and things like that would interrupt being up by the office, but the interior of that space could be worked on while kids aren't around, and no kids would be displaced because they're not in there right now. So I think it lends itself a little bit better to less disruption than probably the previous phases because we're not working on classroom space.
Yeah, and
Most
that,
part.
that school store space is not in an academic hallway.
Yeah.
Helpful too.
Thank you.
So just for my own brain to sort of start at the top and go down here, I think that the existing use at Longfellow, I'm really supportive of amending the proposed scope of work, given the light use. I think that actually housing the Best of Both Worlds program there and the related services has been really a great solution for that building. It's a very easy building to sort of get into and out of. And I think it makes a lot of sense why the work that had been identified previously when the use was going to be very different, right, potentially as all-day kindergarten, why we would scale back on that and put those funds elsewhere. So I appreciate everybody looking at that as a place where we could save and reallocate some funds. And then, HVAC projects, the cost, the lead time on HVAC right now is really super fun. But again, it's work that has to be done. I appreciate that we have, replacement schedules and we try to stick with them. So want to make sure that we continue that because it's really just kicking the can down the road when we don't do our HVAC projects on time. So I am in favor of consolidating those funds and interest in, using that as a funding source for that and then using the PI fund for the identified work at South. Just, obviously we're going to have to fit the final scope to the budget, right? So it's a little bit of, back and forth to make that fit. It won't happen overnight. But appreciate that you're taking a lot of input from the people who spend a lot of time in the building and understand how some of those underutilized spaces can really support the programs there in a better way. So, yeah, thanks.
I know, since you're seeking feedback from all of us, right? Like, I'm not going to repeat what my colleague said, but I'm in favor of this proposal going forward. And I appreciate all the work that you guys have done, not just recently, but over the past year and a half to get us here. So thank you.
Yeah, same. I don't have any additional questions at this time. I think this all makes common sense.
Could you just confirm then, I know we had talked about what we're planning to bring next month, given this conversation.
Yeah, I wanted to that's probably how we'll close up and,
Okay.
and wrap up with it. I don't know if Ms. Brown or Ms. Leban have any additional.
No objections from me. Similar to what Ms. Altman shared, I am absolutely in favor of moving forward with the project, and I appreciate you all getting back to me. I know I had a question regarding potential refinancing of bonds, and so I know that it was just helpful for me to better understand what that process actually is. But no, I think this sounds all great, but more than anything, it's great to see that, because a lot of times I think community members don't understand just how much we really value feedback from our students, and the fact that students over the past few years have been telling us what they want to see, and they don't want the building to feel institutionalized. And so we're taking that into consideration is incredibly important.
I echo basically what all of my colleagues had said about the use of Longfellow. I think this is a really thoughtful plan. And in terms of having recently walked through South and some of the renovations there, it does feel like there's just pieces that wouldn't be extravagant, but it would just give it a more finished, polished look. And I think all of those renovations would really tie everything together for a better student and community experience. So thank you.
Thank you. I even have a slide for that.
See?
Moving forward, what this will look like. So before the board in April will be the FY26 bid for the HVAC work. And then as we move forward with the RFQ, the board will obviously see any approvals related to any of the work or scope, hiring an architect, all of those pieces. You're heavily involved. So this was just supporting how we were planning to move forward, but that'll all come back.
I don't know that we've done a ton of those with some of our newer board members. So could you just quickly hit on what an RFQ is or for the community?
Yeah. It's a request for qualifications in which we state what the intent of the project would be. So architects and engineering design firms can submit their qualifications. We generally bring a group of people together. Again, not a single person makes a decision. That represent different voices from not only our community, but also our district leadership team to look at who is best to bring to the board for a recommendation to do that work with. So we did something very similar in 2024 when we were talking about potentially moving some of that phase 2 work forward. And in terms of a construction manager at risk was what we were looking at with that work. And we had some really great organizations that applied to do it. So we want to make sure they align with how we want to move that work. So that'll all be very involved.
So that won't necessarily be at the April board meeting, but because we know
No.
the board is supportive of using the PI
Yes.
funds, we can start moving forward with getting that request for qualifications together, right?
I think at the earliest that you guys will see that will probably be at about 4 months from now, to be honest with you. It takes time. It has to be posted for so long. It has to go for a formal opening, then we'll review those based upon the information that we post for it. I mean, it's a process. So the earliest I think you guys will see anything around that would be about 4 months from now.
Yeah, and that process is prescribed in law, so we just have to.
Okay.
All right, thank you so much. Appreciate it. So moving along, may I have a motion to reinstate Robert's Rules of Order?
So moved.
Second.
Ms. Brown. Yep.
Mrs. Valentine?
Yes.
Mrs. Brown?
Yes, sorry.
Mrs. Leban?
Yes.
Mrs. Altman?
Yes.
Mrs. Meyer?
Yes, and next up is board comments. Who would like to start?
I guess I can kick us off. I just want to, as always, congratulate all of our retirees. I feel like every single board meeting, I'm really just in awe of just how many years people devote to this district. So I'm very thankful for that. I also wanted to just share that I am also thankful to just be able to go back to buildings and participate in activities like BizTown and Reading Across America. It's always wonderful being able to get into the classrooms as a board member. And then before our next board meeting, I definitely want to wish happy holidays to all of our families and students in the district that are observing Ramadan and Eid next week.
I just wanted to also say congratulations to all of the retirees. Obviously, there's a lot of very dedicated people in this district who have very much loved their careers here, and I really appreciate that. I wanted to say thank you to Mrs. Hamburg and Mrs. Dennis for taking time out of their busy schedules to walk me through another handful of schools this week. It's been awesome. We have one more left, so I'm looking forward to that. And it was great too. I was able to get out to 2 of the Black History Month performances, and congratulations to all the students who put forth such an amazing effort. It was really beautiful to see, and looking forward to getting out to some additional events in the next few months.
Just in addition to those, again, I want to reiterate a thanks to our transportation and our grounds crews. It has really been a phenomenal week in terms of wind and weather, and just appreciate the extra time they put in. And I know that, as Superintendent Hamburg said, Friday getting students home from school was interesting. So again, just appreciate the care and concern that they always take for our students and getting them to and from school safely. Thanks.
I echo all of those things, and I want to say thank you to our educators and our staff who work with the kids every day, because I know they're probably getting squirrely. It's almost spring break time, so another week. Not even. It's just this 2 weeks. Yeah, one more week, another week and a half. I'm just pushing it along. Another week and a half, and they'll have a little bit of a break. So thank you to all of them who are continuing to move them forward. And here's to a good Q4. There'll be a lot of really amazing performances from the high schools and band shows and athletics. And I think Westerville North is looking to go back to the championship, maybe. Yeah, so a lot of awesome things happening in the district if you can get out to something that sounds like it appeals to you. So thanks.
Well, I won't repeat all that. Let's just say congratulations also to the bands that played in the OMEA this past weekend. And thanks to Westerville Central for hosting that. It was a really great production. And just really deep gratitude for, I think every time I get up here, I'm become more and more grateful for this community and the staff and just the people, the families, the students. It's just such an amazing district, and I'm just really grateful to be here amongst all of you. And I want to wish everybody have a really great spring break. I hope that you have some downtime and enjoy your family, and I hope that we don't have 77-degree weather, then torrential downpours with wind, and then snow. I hope it's just sunny. So with that, may I have I have a motion to move. Oh, yep. Thank you. The board will meet in regular session on Monday, April 6th at 2026 at 6 p.m. at the Early Learning Center, which is here 936 Eastwind Drive, Westerville, Ohio 43081. And with that, may I have a motion to move into executive session for the purposes of negotiations with employees in the discipline and compensation of public employees?
So move.
Second.
Mrs. Brown? Yes. Mrs. Levan?
Yes.
Mrs. Valentine?
Yes.
Mrs. Altman?
Yes.
Mrs. Meyer?
Yes. And we're going to go into executive session. Thank you. You're welcome to stay, or you can go home. Thank you.
7:49.
It's 8:44.
Thank you.
And we're back. And may I have a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Second. You ready?
Mrs. Valentine?
Yes.
Mrs. Levan?
Yes.
Mrs. Altman?
Yes.
Mrs. Brown?
Yes.
Mrs. Meyer, sorry.
Yes. Adjourned.